Do you feel like money is a source of stress, maybe a source of shame or confusion? This episode, we're going to dive into that with my guest today, Nicole, who's a financial life coach. She really dove and drove this thing home that says, now is the time to invest, not when you're making more money, not when things settle down, and not when you feel ready. So if you're sick of being broke and you are ready to get your financial life under control, then stick around and dive in for today's episode. You know something is holding you back. You just haven't figured out what it is yet. Welcome to Your Inner Landscape. I am Jackie Edgerly. With 15 years of clinical practice, I help people trust themselves again, believe in their path, and step into the identity of the successful, powerful leader they already are. This podcast is for anyone with something real to offer. A gift, a service, a calling, who knows they have more impact to make and something underneath just keeps getting in the way. We don't stay on the surface here, we go to the root, deep dive and get to the bottom of your blocks through subconscious reprogramming and brain rewiring, so that you can build a business that feels like freedom and a life that feels like it's truly yours. If you're done waiting and ready for real answers, then you are exactly where you need to be. Hello and welcome, Jackie here. Today we are talking about money, finances, all the things that no one ever taught us about investing and how we can start investing today, even if it's just $10. So we have Nicole Ingham. She's a financial life coach. She's a super badass. She's built herself a 7-figure portfolio. She's recently quit her 6-figure job so that she can be a financial life coach and help women become financially literate and abundant. So I'm so grateful to have you here. Welcome to the show, Nicole.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, so maybe just give us a little brief intro on kind of like quitting that job and, now you're stepping into this role of helping women to understand money, right? Because a lot of us were never taught how to manage our money. No one ever talks about money. So maybe just kind of give us a quick little intro on where you're at and what happened with this, like leaving this corporate world into your financial coaching.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love it. So yes, I did. My background is in tech. Anything from fintech was the first tech job that I had to robotic process automations to databases as a service and a few in between. So that was what I specialized in. And I always felt very career driven as a woman. I wanted to like have a seat at the table with the guys, and tech I loved because it was a challenge. And I also knew I could make a lot of money. So I started working in it and then just maneuvered my way around. I always wanted to continue to climb the corporate ladder. So I was fine with like switching careers, switching companies, and switching industries to relearn it. Because that's one of the main things that I found is that when you're looking to like get a new job, if anybody's out there interested in, pivoting, if you can show someone that you know how to learn, then you've shown them, okay, that you can learn anything. So you can take a new job and it's like not that big of a leap. So, yes, so I moved in. My last job was databases with a service. I managed the sales enablement and the marketing departments for our partners. So I worked directly with people, the companies that we partnered with, like AWS, Google Cloud, Azure. I would partner with them to train their sales team on like how to sell our stuff. And then if they wanted to do like a marketing campaign, I would tell them how to integrate databases as a service into that campaign. So yeah, that was my department, what I used to do. Last May, I had this like awakening that I was like, why am I working this hard? We had nannies after nannies. I've got 2 kids. I'm a mom. I've got a 4-year-old and a soon-to-be 2-year-old in a few weeks. And I was just like, I'm feeling burnt out. I'm feeling overwhelmed that I have to pay somebody so much money to watch my kids, and then I'm paying a ton in taxes. And because I'm a numbers person, I actually ran some of the numbers, and I was like, even though I'm making in the 6 figures, we're paying in the 6 figures between those 2 things. So it was like, I knew I wanted to make a shift. I knew that we had really worked really, really hard to put all of this money away and learn personal finance and learn investing. So I had a moment where I was just like, okay, I'm a leap of faith. I'm going to do it. Actually, it was like one of those, I needed a kick in the butt, and the universe saw that and gave me a terrible manager.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, this is the time where I think it's like a sign that I no longer want to be owned by a corporation that doesn't care about me, right? Like, and they make you have deadlines, and then it's like that choice of like, oh, okay, do I miss my kid's soccer game, or do I like get this assignment done, or do I stay up and get even less sleep? And I was just over that. I think that's one of the main reasons why I got into investing was like I didn't want anybody to own me. I've always felt a big drive towards independence, and investing in the stock market was like that light bulb of like, oh shit, like if I own my financial life, then I own my life. So that's why it became such, honestly, an obsession. Then,
It's like you choosing you, right? It's like, okay, no,
yes,
I'm sick of being controlled or sick of being put
yeah,
down or whatever exactly was happening.
yes.
Um, so I'm really curious. So you were in corporate, you kind of saw what was happening and you felt this deeper pull. But I'm kind of curious, like, can we just go back to sort of your origin story? Because I'm sure people are like, did she come from money? What was your money like growing up or what you witnessed? So maybe just going back to really helping the listener be like, okay, so who is Nicole and kind of how did she come into this financial, it's really financial education, right? Like understanding your finances. So maybe just give us a little bit of an origin story of how your money was growing up and kind of what led you into where you are today.
Oh, I love it. No, well, I did not come from money. My grandpa on my dad's side, we were estranged from my mom's family. But my grandpa on my dad's side, he put up telephones. He was a telephone man in Florida. So a lot of the telephones from like mid Florida to Miami, that's what he did. Well, worked for Bell South. He retired when he was 50, and then my parents met in the military. My dad was in the army, that was his career. And starting at 25, my dad actually financially supported my grandparents through the rest of their life. So we were always people who lived heavily below our means. Like when my dad left the military, he retired, he got a well-paying sales job. He's a sales manager, but a lot of that money all went to making sure that our colleges were paid for and funded and making sure my grandparents were well taken care of in their older years. So yeah, did not come from money. It wasn't really until I was in my 20s that I started to see the power of investing. My parents did an amazing, amazing job at always ingraining in us that you have to live below your means. And if you're not living below your means, like there's something wrong. And they did instill a lot of like anxiety and fear of like you have to, if you're not saving every month, then something's wrong. So that was one thing that I definitely had to unlearn when you start to get into investing and when you're trying to move from like middle class to upper class. That's a middle class trap, is to oversave. And you live in that overwhelming fear of like, if I'm not saving, or if I don't have like a year in savings, then something's wrong. So yeah, origin story. And then I got a job in fintech as soon as financial technology, as soon as I graduated from my master's program. Just have a general MBA. During my undergrad and my master's, I hated finance and accounting. I actually like negotiated pretty hard to like get out of the finance classes. Then my master's program, I was like, I'm not gonna need it, Like I let's just take it off. It's a general MBA. I don't need to know about all of this stuff, this world, because it just didn't make sense to me. It didn't feel applicable in any way. It felt so like if somebody was talking about aliens, and I'm just like, how's that relevant to me? Like, so it wasn't until I saw other people making a lot of money that I was like, oh shit, why am I not learning enough about this to where I could at least be in the game?
Well, yeah, and
And that's what happened.
that's what I was going to ask you. Like, what was the point in which you were like, something had to shift, or what was like the wall moment of, you hit a limit emotionally, financially? Like, what was the thing that actually shifted for you?
To start investing.
Well, just, yeah, to be like, go from, that scarcity mindset of I have to save or something's wrong, or, those deeper patterns of kind of like scarcity to more like, hey, I'm going to take control of this. And, what was kind of your turning point? And I think you
Thank
said
you.
it at the beginning too, when you were in Something when you were in corporate, when you were kind of like something isn't, fueling me specifically. So what was that?
Yeah. I feel like it was a few fold. One turning point to investing was I had a buddy that was really into crypto in 2017, and he started telling me about how much money he was making, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's insane!" Because 2017 crypto, it was the Wild West. Like it was like day trading to an extent, but like almost like you were making a ton of money. So he held my hand through my first trade. So I've always been a more contrarian minded where like if other people aren't doing it, I'm kind of like, oh, okay, like let me see why. Like let me look into it more. Then and mostly I feel like if he would not have held my hand through the process and showed me how to like action that first buy, I don't know if I would have. So there would have been a huge opportunity cost not to take that risk looking back. So that was like the turning point that got me into investing, and then seeing a lot of like positive reinforcement through making that decision, like continuing to invest, really like keeping it as a priority. That has definitely developed so many neural pathways of like, okay, yes, like the evidence is there that this is working and that I need to like continue to do this and continue down this path. And then the shift for corporate last May, I actually had prior to this manager, I had the world's best manager. He was like amazing. I learned so much under him. And he was like, do you want me to help you take my job because I'm leaving? Or do you want to pivot into like a more technical role? And so he helped me like transition, get a big raise. I got a $30,000 raise from that transition and move into product marketing. The manager that I had at that time it was just not a good fit. And it wasn't a good fit for the whole team. And I was put in a position where I had to ask myself if I'm going to be the type of person that stays quiet when I see harassment happen and when I see things that are wrong happen, or am I the type of person that is going to be able to speak out? And I'm a big reader. I have always seen myself as the former or the latter where like I would speak out, I would say like this is wrong, but I was able to actually like I had to report that manager to HR for her behavior. If it was just me, I probably would have walked away. But I was also in a unique position. I saw everybody on my team was impacted, but I was in a unique position because I didn't need my job financially. I was working financially so that we could put money away for ourselves and for our kids because we still like we've always kept the consistent of like living off of one of our income. And so when I was faced with that, I decided, okay, I'm gonna speak up and speak out against what's been going on. And that was a roller coaster and one of the worst corporate experiences that I've had, that I had, period. And so after that, I ended up on a new team with a new manager who I absolutely loved. She was great, but I was just burnt out. And I was just like, I am sick of not having control or the control being dictated by who my direct manager is of like what my quality of life will look like. And I'm really good at putting boundaries up. That's like I almost had a superpower once I had kids to where it was like if it happens after 5, like you're not going to reach me because my time as a working mom, like that was my kids' time. Mornings and nights were theirs. Because the day is hectic and you're moving and grooving doing work. But this specific instance definitely impacted me mentally to where I couldn't show up for my kids like I wanted to show up for them. And so that was really the turning point of like, okay, I've done well when I've taken risks in the past. And I need to, if I'm willing to bet on a startup time and time again and bust my ass for that startup, why don't I take a risk and bet on myself? And that's why I started my business. So I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know I want to coach. I love, like, I get a high from helping people. from like seeing things click for people and then them being like, oh shit, like, yeah, I can do it. Or even like building people up. Like I love to give people like the ultimate build up. So I knew I wanted to get into the coaching space. I didn't know how. I didn't know how to just start a business, how to create anything like this. I'd been a W-2 worker my whole career, and it's so different being an entrepreneur than a W-2 worker. It is like night and day. So I hired a coach. I work with an energy coach, and she really helped me figure out and follow like where I was getting my energy from. And it was the role that I was constantly playing in a lot of my friends' life and my family's life was like helping them with their finances. And so she helped me design like what type of business. And from that, I designed the rest of my business and have been, actively working with women and families to get them to understand money in a different way because we are not taught anything about money besides that we should be grateful for the crumbs that are handed to us, which is bullshit. Like that is the universe is not on a budget. You do not have to sit there and say like, oh, thank you for these crumbs that fell down. Like, fuck that. No, like we deserve to live in an abundant life. So that's what I try to impart on my clients for them to see that like money doesn't have to be hard. Finances don't have to be hard. The way that we are taught them to condition us is so that it feels hard and it's to keep us in a scarcity or that low energy where it feels like we have to be reliant on W-2 work or on, things working out perfectly because we did everything we should for it to line up.
Yeah. So I have so many questions. So thanks for sharing that, the pivot, the sort of aha transition moment. And I really want to get into like the, practical sort of like order of ops from, let's say someone's at zero, or maybe they're in debt, or maybe they have an abundance of money that they keep spending. But before we get into that, I'm really just curious quickly if it sounds like there was a lot of inner work that happened. Like, you had that guy who held your hand and you were like, if he didn't do it, I wouldn't have done it. And then, even we're now working with the energy coach. So I'm just curious, like, what kind of internally had to shift for you to, I guess, first of all, take that initial investment into, you said the first one was into Bitcoin, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. So even like, because a lot of this stuff is driven from our internal state, right? It's like, how do we manage our decisions? So I'm just curious, what for you internally had to kind of shift to start looking at your money differently?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things was just realizing that was letting go of a lot of the fear of like trying to control. And I think that's one of the biggest obstacles for people to get into investing that I hear all the time is like, what if I lose money? Right?
Yeah.
That like inherent fear. But that thought process just holds you back. And it just like, if you're not investing, you're losing money because you're losing money to inflation. If your money is just sitting into a savings account, even if it's a high yield savings account making you 4 to 5% a year, you're still losing money between inflation and quantum easing, which is just them printing money, which they do all the time in the States. You're losing your money. So getting over like that initial fear of like, oh my gosh, what if I lose money? Because I've lost money in the market. I talk about like my success stories, and I've had numerous success stories with like beating the S&P 500 or like 10xing money. But I've also lost money. I've seen by being in the crypto market, I've seen it go from like losing hundreds of thousands to where you're also like, it doesn't matter. Because that's another hurdle of like, okay, it will go up, it'll go down. But being like secure in yourself, I think was another thing I had to just be like, it's my money is there, but it's also separate from my everyday life, if that makes sense. Like, so I'm not dependent upon what that number is for how I feel internally inside. If that
Yeah. So
resonates.
what did you have any like specific tools, or what was your sort of approach to being secure in yourself, or even to work through that fear? Like, did you have certain things that helped, or like what did that look like for you?
Yeah, I think the big thing, I think it was a blessing that I got into crypto first because it's so volatile. So you just see it go up and down all the time. So as I continued to grow my portfolio, the volatility continued to go up, especially with the 4-year cycles. So just like time in the market helped to get away from the nervousness around like, is it going to go down? Is it going to go up? And because of that, because I've seen like our portfolio cut in half after a few months, like that it has allowed me to also separate from like, okay, what does it matter if it's at 500,000 or 200,000 or whatever in between? What matters is that like it's in there and it's in assets that I believe in. So I know eventually one day it's going to go back up. And if it doesn't, I'll rebalance, i.e., I'll sell out of those assets and put them into other assets. So I think, like, long story short, I know that this has gone around, but between time in the market, between, and then also just like educating myself, continuing to learn more and like demystifying what it is. Because a lot of times if you listen to like Jim Cramer on Mad Money and he's like going off about like, oh, like check out this stock or look at this stock or let's look at the macroeconomics of society and like what's going on with this and like all of the things that impact investing. You don't have to know everything, but the more that you do know and the more that you're like getting used to it, you're getting your nervous system comfortable with it, right? Because when we're in a state of growth, that's your nervous system freaking out because you're no longer comfortable. And you know this, but like our nervous system is set up to make us comfortable and keep us so that we are in the environment where we're not standing out, right? So by I completely lost my train of thought. Oh my God.
No, I love it. So what you're saying is basically by, educating yourself, learning
Mhm.
more, demystifying what finances is, and basically just taking action
Yes.
is basically helping you basically break down that fear, which is a lot of the same
Yes.
stuff that we do, in the subconscious world, right? Like by taking the action is where we build the confidence. So it sounds like it's
Yes.
really similar where it's like the time actually helps calm that nervous system down to be like, hey,
Yes.
this isn't some crazy thing, which I think leads
Exactly.
us into such a good place to just go into like the practical sort of mechanism of or like the mechanics of where does somebody start? Like, let's say someone is just paying their bills or they're living kind of just evenly. Like you said, you were making 100K, but then you also were spending 100K. Like, where does
Yeah.
someone start to kind of just get a grip of this whole picture?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So I think there's so many resources out there and so many different places that you can start. I think no matter how much money you're making. So if you're making $25,000 a year or you're making $750,000 a year, it is always a time to invest, right? So the difference between those two people is the first person that's making $25,000 a year, your time to invest is you need to start investing in yourself. You need to start investing in how you can figure out how can I up level my skill set so that I can go from making 25,000 to 75. Great. I just got myself a 3x on my salary. That 50,000 that's the difference. Now I can pivot to the person that's making 750,000 and it's my time to start investing in the stock market or start investing in assets that will pay me back. So that's where, yeah, that's how I would look at that.
Yeah, I
Um,
love that so much too because it's like you hear, oh, well, I don't have enough money to invest. Well, it's like, and I
yes,
think this came up, we had a conversation yesterday where that really stood out to me, where it was like the best, if you don't have the money to invest or if you are in a place where you're just breaking even, what a beautiful time to potentially just invest in yourself, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're working in a
yes,
company or whatever, because and I fully believe that the best thing that we can invest in is ourself, right? Because that's a
yeah,
long-term financial plan
yes,
of, your skills are going to pay off.
yes, yeah.
And
And you
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say, and those are transferable, right? Like no matter where you end up, everything that you've invested in yourself, you get it tenfold. And that's what I did. So that was like my story. I was not making 750,000, but I was making 50,000. And that's when I was looking at the market like, okay, I know I had at that year, that was 2020. I had just made my salary. I doubled my income by like making that in the market. So I made over 50,000 that year. And making money in the stock market is so much easier than making money in your 9 to 5, right? I actioned 2 trades that got me to that. And I bought when it was a sale, it was 2020, everything like crashed. I bought at the bottom and it paid me back tenfold, right? So at that point, I was like, well, shit, I just went from 50,000 was my income. And that was like what other people were telling me my time was worth. But actually, now my time is worth $100,000. So I need to get a job that's paying me at least that, because that's what I know I can make. And so I started looking at, okay, well, what are the soft skills that I have in my job that I can transfer to a different job that's paying me more? So the job that I had was a client advocate. And through research and everything, I found out that there's a job title called a customer success manager within tech that paid twice what I was making. So I was like, well, shit, I'm going to start looking for CSM jobs and start applying to those so that I can get that leap. And that's what I did. I actually was a product, I got into a role that was a product consultant, but it used all of my background with like implementations and customer success in order to pivot into that role. And then we had extra income. So now it's like, okay, now we have that money instead of allowing lifestyle creep to take that money and, buying clothes that now I have to get rid of the next year because it's not in style. I'm going to continue to invest in myself just in a different way. Now my money's going to work for me in the stock market instead of investing in like certifications from LinkedIn and those.
So, like, let's say there's, someone who's never heard about any of this stuff, or they're like very beginner. Where could someone start just even learning about like what to invest in? Like if someone is making, let's say, $25,000 a year, or
Yeah.
if they're just literally not making enough they think it's not enough to start investing, maybe it's 50,000, whatever. But where could they start with, just
With
like,
learning.
yeah, and just even being like, what would be how would someone get into the stock market?
Yeah. Okay. Well, love this. There's so many different ways that you can get into the stock market. So if I had an extra $100 a month, this is exactly what I would do. So I would utilize free resources. There's so many free resources. So YouTube, you're going to find long form resources. You can follow accounts and pages like one that taught me a lot was Your Rich Journey. They're phenomenal. They're in the FIRE movement. FIRE is just financial independence, retire early. And that's a movement my husband and I are in. Technically, this is my retirement era because we hit one of our goal numbers. And so I would go on YouTube. I would look at influencers that are on YouTube and like Our Rich Journey and other people like them. And I would start to watch their videos because most of finance, all of it is, it's people are using fancy terms and like jargon to gatekeep, right? We have an entire industry out there, financial advisors, financial analysts, all of that. Not to say there isn't a place and a time for those, but they want you to say, this is too hard. I can't do this. And then they want you to give your power away, which is giving your money. So instead of doing that and falling into that trap, use the free resources. The other thing to do is use Instagram. There are so many people out there that are giving really good information. My page is the Millionaire Mom Next Door. I break down topics from, what is net a fee versus gross a fee? What is a brokerage account? So the types of accounts that you can open versus what is like a Roth IRA or 401k. So yeah, I would rely on social media. And honestly, you can do really well with learning stuff. It's called micro learning. Have you heard of this trend where it's like just a few minutes a day and all you're doing is like starting to get more comfortable with
So
it?
it's basically like what you said before, where it's like just educating yourself calms the nervous system around that. But
Yes. Yeah.
even for me, I'm like, oh my gosh, that sounds overwhelming.
Yeah.
So is there, what is there like a platform that you use, or like the actual like mechanics of like, I wouldn't even know how to, like where to start with any of this, so if
With
someone
like,
was just, yeah, like what would be like a layout of like the beginner's guide to, starting
yes, to
investing?
investing.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I do have like just to sell one of my programs really quick. I started and created a program called Invested, and it is a coaching program for women that will bring you through over 9 weeks how to start investing, and you'll actually start investing in the program. So actioning that first trade, just like my friend held my hand, I'll hold your hand and we'll go through it. But I think before you start investing, it's like ripping the Band-Aid off almost, start to get familiar with it. And the reason being is like you want to know what type of account to start with, right? So let's say you're just getting started, you don't know where to start, and you open a Roth IRA instead of a brokerage account. And you start putting money into a Roth IRA, but you make more than the income limit. Well, now you put too much money, you put money into a Roth IRA when legally you're not allowed to. So then you're going to get hit with penalties and have to withdraw. So super baseline, if you're going to start, watch a few YouTube videos, right? And then say, okay, I would start with a brokerage account. And user friendly wise, apps are typically more user friendly than your typical custodian. So let me explain that. Like Robinhood is a really good app for people that are just starting out because it's really user friendly. They're able to like fix and maneuver their UX. So it makes sense versus if you go to a standard custodian like Vanguard or Schwab or Fidelity, it's going to be harder to even figure out where to do the buy from, right?
Right. So like Vanguard is basically a bigger company that you put the money in and then it invests for you, correct?
So Vanguard is a custodian. They are, yes. So how do I answer that question? It's a good question. A custodian is like a bank. You can think of them, but they're within the realm of investing. They're the bank that holds your money for your investments. So they're holding the cash that you have, and they're also holding the actual investments. So instead of talking about it like investments and stocks, let's talk about it like companies, right? So if you go into your bank account, and right in your bank account, you have an account. Let's say it's your high yield savings account. And then you have a savings account and a checking account, right? Those are your three different types of accounts. So instead of seeing that, you would log into, let's say, Schwab. I have Schwab because my husband works there. So we'll just use them as a default. You would see different account types based on like brokerage accounts. A brokerage account is the most flexible one. It's the one that anybody can open, anybody can invest in. And there's no red tape around a brokerage account. So it doesn't have to be there's not like a limit for you to put in. And then you might see a traditional IRA or for us entrepreneurs, like a solo 401k. So you'll see those different types of accounts instead of like your checkings and savings. Then when you open that account, you'll see cash. And then you'll also see all of the assets. So think of assets as a company. So if you walked into, like you have Nike, you have Coca-Cola, you've got like, everything around us at all times is a company. And most of the time they're publicly traded. So like, our phones, Apple, you would see that in your account and as an owner. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So it's basically just, breaking it down from, let's say, Schwab's the big company, then you go to the brokerage account, and then in the brokerage account, you have like the cash and then the different companies.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. And then, yes. Yeah.
And so then I'm curious from there. So I'm curious your take on, so I guess before I go there, from there you can kind of just like pick and choose and watch, what you think is a good place to start investing. Like you can just go, you can just buy straight there from your Schwab account. Yeah.
Yeah. Like technically you could open a brokerage account today, fund it. It'll take a few days to fund. Right now they have technology that they can like check in your bank account that you have the money that you're transferring in. And then typically you can immediately action a trade. So you could start with absolutely no background, never having even looked into anything. And you could totally do that. Technically, that is how I started. I didn't know much of anything. And I just made the leap. And then, but I would say like, if you wanted to do a little bit of research, look into what accounts and then open that account, then start to play. And in my opinion, that is the best way for you to learn it because it's the best way for you to actually see. So take an amount of money per month that okay, this is my learning money, my learning budget. So if you've got the $100 of extra income per month, let's say you're going to take $10 and that's going to be your playground. And with that $10, you're going to action buys. And now it's a little bit different than it used to be. You can action partial buys. So if you have Robinhood, you go in and you say, okay, I'm going to buy $10 worth of Apple. They'll take a few fees out to action the trade. And then you own a partial share in Apple. Then what you're going to start to notice is like month over month, the next month when you go in, you're like, okay, I'm going to buy $10 more worth. You're going to see, okay, my $10 that I put in prior, let's say it was $9 after fees. That $9 is $8.50. And then you're gonna be like, what the fuck? What happened to my 50 cents? Where did it go? And then another month you're going to go in there and you're going to see that, let's say you have $15 now. That $15 is now at $20. And you're like, oh my God, look at me. I'm freaking rich. Like I just made $5 doing nothing. And you're just going to see it fluctuate and go up and down. And that you're getting your nervous system used to, one, seeing that up and down, but two, building that muscle so that it doesn't feel as scary. Then what's going to happen is instead of it just being $10 a month, now you're like, oh, well, now I was investing in myself while I was playing in the stock market. Now I have $200 extra. I'm going to take 100 because I feel more comfortable and I'm going to put $100 in. And instead of Apple, maybe I look at like a mutual fund or an exchange traded fund because I want to diversify, right? Because that's really important. So then you say, okay, I'm going to buy a super standard, and this is not financial advice, a super standard asset, let's say VTI, Vanguard's total stock market index. It's a super popular one. It tracks 5,000 different companies. So I'm just going to start buying that, and I'm going to put $90 in that, and then the $10 will go into Apple. And then you start to build and you get more comfortable and it's more normal. And then with your 200 or your $100 up to 100 now, when it goes down, you're going to say, oh shit, I know that I can buy more this month. So I've been saving that extra $100 a month. I have like my emergency fund is good. All of my funds are good. So I'm going to take $200 this month and I'm going to put it in because the market's down 20%. And then a few months later, you're going to be like, wow, that was a really fucking good idea. I'm a genius because I did what other people are not, said not to do. They were panicking. They let fear control them. But I went the other way and I bought. And now what I was able to buy, so let's say, you're only able to buy a partial share, but that partial share was half of a share instead of it being only 0.3 of a share. So it starts to get you more used to it. And then you're able to like make those better decisions. One of the best ways that I think of it as like, because people talk about, I'm going to time the market. I hear this all the time. They're like, I'm not going to start investing it because like we're entering a recession and things are going to go down. And like, that's when I'm going to just like take all my money and put it in. And I'm like, that is a terrible idea. Not only is it a terrible idea because like, how do you know what you're going to invest in, but two, if you walked into a gym for the very first time and you've never been to a gym before, you're looking around and you're like, what the fuck are all these contraptions? Like, I don't even know how to fit in that thing, let alone like
Totally.
get my body into it and like accurately do it without like, I believe you're probably in your 30s too, like 30, like there's no going back, the injuries that you're going to get from that thing. So like, but if you go to the gym every week and you see other people do it and you're like, oh, okay, yep, I know what that is. Or I worked with a personal trainer for a little bit and I got comfortable. Then you're going to go into the gym all the time and it's going to feel like second nature. And so if you're sick or you're not feeling great or it feels like the world's ending around you, you can still show up to the gym and you're like, no, it's good. I know what I'm doing.
Yes, I love this so much. Yeah.
So like it's a lot different than saying like, oh yeah, I'm going to time the market and that's when I'm going to get started. So even if it's as low as $10 a month, just getting started makes a big difference because you're adjusting to your new normal.
Yeah. And I mean, it's so cool because you're basically describing neuroplasticity in real time. Yeah. And we call that like in the framework that I work in, it's like, that's the expansive environment. And it's also in neuro-linguistic program, we call it, I think you said at the beginning, you even called it evidence. And so basically if we have these experiences that we've had in the past where money was scarce or rich people are evil or, all these different beliefs around it, where if you start building your own, seeing things differently so you don't have to look through those filters, which you're saying like do now instead of later, you actually build out those filters so you can see something different so you can change your reality. And so it's so cool because you're basically literally describing neuroplasticity from the expansive sort of, we call it, yeah, the
Yes.
evidence. So when we
Yeah.
have evidence, and that's even why, like, I've been surrounding myself with, locally, I've been really focused on surrounding myself with entrepreneurs and business people to be like, wow, she can
Yes.
do it, so can I.
Exactly.
And I
Yes.
see this in business and in health where people are like, oh, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. And it's like, well, are you ever going to be ready?
Exactly. Yeah, nobody's ever quote unquote ready, in my opinion, to like start investing. Like you just do it. And then you realize, especially regular people, like then you just realize like, oh, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
Like this whole like yeah, it's like a veil and or a fog. You're trying to like drive in a fog and you're like, oh my God, it's so scary. I can't see anything. And then like the fog goes away because the sun burned it off and you're like, oh, this isn't that bad. You're like, it's like I can clearly see it's a like driving 2 lanes. I see the speed limit. I'm good to go. I know when
Yeah.
it
I
goes
just
green,
gotta,
I'm
yeah, I
gonna
gotta practice.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
Okay, so I just want to back up quickly so we can kind of summarize. So basically, we talked about the sort of the bigger, company. Let's say it's Schwab, and then we break down to a smaller account or the brokerage account. And then you mentioned the Robinhood app. I'm just curious, how can you connect that for us? Just like, what is that? How does that
Yeah.
fit into the whole picture?
Yeah, so like if you have I call them like traditional brokerage accounts, with like Schwab, Vanguard, Fidelity, those you can have an app too. Like I've got an app on my phone, but there's also those are there. It's like any big company. It's like a slow moving beast, right? So like all of their the user experience, so like how easy it is to like check like your net additions versus your net gain. Net additions is just the money that I physically inputted or I added to the account versus the net gain is the gain that I've seen on that money. So if I added $100 and now it's at $102, my gain is $2 I just made. So seeing things like that on apps like Robinhood is a really good one. Robinhood was where I first started investing. Then you've got, if you wanted to get into crypto, Coinbase is awesome. Their UX is amazing. And then there's other ones. So like those ones are standard ones. And then there's other types of apps like M1 Finance I used for years. I freaking loved it. That one you can actually design almost like an index fund. So I think of an index fund because it's people will talk about index funds all the time when you talk about finance and investing in the market. Think of it as a party planner. An index fund is just like if you're going to go to the Met Gala, there's the people that show up to the Met Gala. They're like the cool kids that got in. And then there's the party planner that decides who gets in, who's cool enough.
Yeah.
So an index fund is like if you're hiring that party planner because you know that they like know the ins and outs. So they're the person that's going to bring the best people in the room. And it's their job, not your job. If somebody's like not cool enough or they're not doing well, like that they're going to take somebody off the guest list and then they're going to add somebody else that is cool to keep the party up to beat.
And so you're saying
So,
that's like the different companies?
so that is an index fund. So an index fund is classified as like either a mutual fund or an exchange traded fund. Both of those are types of index funds. And what that means is they're indexed to a certain type of market. So like the S&P 500 there's a ton of index funds that are indexed to the S&P 500. So whatever the list is that those 500 top companies, the funds that you're personally investing into are just a different percentages of that. So you could purchase one index fund that's indexed to the S&P 500 and it might have like a little bit different percentages than another fund that's indexed to the S&P 500.
And
Does that make sense?
yeah. So what would, like, how would you choose the difference? Is it like through personal preference? Like, is it like, I'm going to choose the green one or I'm going to choose the one that,
So it's personal preference. Also, if depending on who your overall custodian is, so if you go with like a Schwab custodian or a Vanguard custodian, if you buy index funds that are Schwab or Vanguard, because they have similar funds that are indexed to the same thing, if you purchase those, then you're within the same custodian. So if I have a Vanguard, I'm using Vanguard as my custodian, my brokerage account, and I'm going to invest in VTI, Vanguard's total indexed fund, within that account. There's less fees typically because it's Vanguard. They want to promote theirs to the internal to their customers, right? Versus if you have a Vanguard account and you're investing in a Schwab asset, then you might get hit with additional fees.
yeah. Okay. So basically, long story short, we just need to get started so it doesn't sound like jargon.
Yeah. Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and I'm curious too, like as we kind of start to close this, how do I say this? So, how did you start to have the capacity to hold more money? Like, how did you start to feel safe, like being a millionaire or having that much money in your bank account and not, because I know that's a huge thing in the work that I do, like to expand to your next level, you need to actually be safe in that, future version of yourself. So I'm curious for you, sort of like what does a, 7-figure portfolio actually feel like in your body? Like how do you kind of, yeah, what's your internal experience of that?
Okay, I love that question. Can I finish answering the last question? Because I feel like if anybody knows anything, they're gonna be like, "Oh wow, she just like went off a cliff and then didn't."
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, and then I'll
Yeah.
do the other one. Okay, so M1 Finance will let you make your own index fund in the sense of like you get to choose the percentages that you want. So if you're like, I have $100 I'm going to invest in, you put the $100 into M1, and then it will allocate it based off percentages to the different companies. So if you're like, every month that I'm putting in $100, I want 20% to go to Apple, 20% to go to Coca-Cola, and 20% to go to BTI, and then the rest of it will go to another fund. It'll auto buy that for you. And so it's set up, which is like super cool. It's a fun app to play in. The last app that I would start to look into is called Autopilot. And that one allows you to pick a politician who has insight that we are not granted, of what trades they're doing. So like if you take
Oh,
Nancy Pelosi is one of the best traders in the world because she has access to a lot of information that the rest of us don't have access to. Their company started as a way to showcase that politicians have this access and like why are they trading? And instead of shutting it down, because we're not going to be able to shut it down, it's like if you can't beat them, join them. So you can pick different politicians who have to report what they're trading on. And you can say, okay, I want to follow Nancy Pelosi's trades and I want to action my trades based off hers, and it's automated. So
yeah,
that
wow.
one's really cool too.
And
Um,
so just quickly to clarify that. So
yeah.
can you just break down where does the M1 fit in? Like where is that?
So an M1 it's technically a brokerage account also.
Oh, so it's just
So
it's
it's
just
like,
a different type of account.
yeah,
Yeah.
it functions differently. So instead
Okay.
of you going into Robinhood and you saying, I want to buy Apple, $20 of Apple every month, M1, you can set it up as a percentage base. So yeah, it's just a different functionality that it offers. But I would very basic, I would start with Robinhood
Yeah.
probably,
Okay,
unless you're
cool.
like super into that like the politicians and like what they're doing and what they know, then Autopilot is a cool one too.
Yeah, but a cool one to know about, right? Like if they do have
Yeah.
more inside scoop than we do, like why not kind of just tap into that?
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah, because trading, like it can be as like I call it a passive to active income or passive to active curve of like what type of investor you want to be. And like I think what a lot of people default to is like, I don't know everything about the stock market. How can I start? And the thing is, like, you don't have to be an active trader. You can be very passive. You can choose index funds, or you can choose like an app like Autopilot, and that allows you to not have to keep your own pulse on it as much, but use, what's out there.
yeah, totally. So selfishly, I'm like, so what's the difference between Robinhood and Autopilot?
Well, Autopilot is going to let you track what the politicians are doing and
Oh,
what
so
they're
that's
trading versus,
specifically the
yes, that's
politician. Yeah.
only, yeah, oh, that's only Autopilot.
Oh, yeah, okay.
There's other apps like that now. They're not the only one, but in transparent, I've never used Autopilot. I was about to start. I was so excited, but my husband works for Schwab. So we can't have any outside brokerage accounts other than Schwab. So I had to close all of like my fun accounts that I used to play in and consolidate just to Schwab.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, yeah, anything else you want to share about like the techie part of it or yeah, like the practical side?
Yeah, I think like the biggest thing is finding a community, and even if that community is just one person, like that's why I think following people on Instagram is so important because you're building that evidence of like, okay, this person did it. And that's really what your rich journey was for me. It's like seeing like, okay, this family who was not rich before was able to go from nothing to, okay, they hustled, they figured this out, and now they're retired, and now they're like, they have like tens of millions of dollars in the bank. Like they're doing phenomenal. But seeing that evidence so that you're able to be like, okay, this is more comfortable, but find a friend, like grab a girlfriend that you're like, listen, we're fucking over being broke. We're like, this is, you make a pact with that person and say, like, this is the poorest we're ever going to be because this is our year. We're going to take the next year and we're going to fucking boss up. We're about to get raises. We're about to get like, I don't know, build an AI agent and then sell that shit. And then we're gonna invest in assets that are paying us just to exist. And that's what I love about investing is like it literally shows you that like you deserve to be paid for existing and nothing else. And I think
Yes.
that's really fucking cool because that's kind of how childhood is, right? Like it's very passive income. You're just in a state of receiving. And when we are transitioned into being an adult, it's like jumping into ice bath where you're shocked to your nervous system, where you're like, well, what do you mean I don't just receive anymore? Now I have to like give and give a lot, and I need to give more and more in order to get more. So it gets you back into that, like, no, actually, you don't have to give more to get more. So
Yes,
yeah.
that's so good. I love it. Grab your girlfriend and let's go.
Yes, yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah, so I'm really curious. So what yeah, as we close, what does having a seven-figure portfolio or, what does that actually feel like in your body, in your life? And how did you have to shift from, being, breaking even or whatever you want to call it to actually having abundance?
I think for me, it just feels normal because in 2020, I decided I was going to be a millionaire. I saw so many other people doing it, and I was like, I feel like as women, we don't fucking give ourselves enough credit. But like deep in my soul, I've always known that I was going to do something or be someone, right? And so when I started investing, I feel like that it like awoke in that of like, oh yeah, like I can be someone too. Like I can set my kids up so that they have a trust fund, so that they're like they can do whatever they can do fuck all, for all I care. Like they are just provided for and cared for. Like it opens that up for you. So like it doesn't feel abnormal because I've been telling myself it's going to happen for the last 6 years. And we hit our first million last May, last March. It was last March. I remember being like, oh, this is so cool. But yeah, so it feels normal because it feels normal and it's also like nothing changed because we've always like I still drive the same car that I did when I was making $30,000 a year and I had a $0 net worth. Like the whole lifestyle creep, that's what kills your net worth growing and like being able to accumulate wealth. Like there's getting rich and then there's getting wealthy. And I've never really been interested in the whole like being rich. I've always been like really interested in being wealthy. And so yeah, it's like, I still like shop on Amazon for some of my clothes or like get my kids Crocs off Amazon, like we're not we're just regular people. But I think that's the beauty of it though, is like regular people can do it too.
Yeah, I love that so much. So it's like what sounds like what you're saying is basically you had to, and maybe you didn't even intentionally do this, but you basically prepared your brain
Yes,
for
yeah.
a long time to be like, no, this is my normal. Or it was like even you even said it was just a decision that you
Mhm.
made that you were like, no, this
Yes.
is what's happening.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was a lot of like seeing the evidence. And I mean, nobody else around me was on this journey, but like seeing the evidence online with other influencers, that's why I feel like they play such a good role in society. I know like everybody gives influencers such slack, but like their ability to show you evidence of something that's different than the evidence that's surrounding you, I think that's really fucking cool. because that's exactly what it does. It builds new neural pathways, you know. For the person that's like not vision boarding and doing things that, you know, you can also leverage and hack to build those pathways, it's seeing it. But that's also why it's like a PSA, audit your fucking Instagram. Because if you're constantly seeing people that are draining energy, or you decide, okay, I want to get on this journey and I want to like really start focusing on my finances and doing my life, but you're seeing people that are going out to eat all the time and they're up, like they're buying the new Range Rover and they're doing all of these things that don't support that, then it's going to undermine your decision. And that's, I had to do that. I was off Instagram for a long time. Or when I was on it, it was like I'm only following friends and then like a few influencers here and there that like I found inspiring. So I
Yeah.
think that like it's a really good way that you can leverage it. But yes, long story short, I built the pathways and just decided like this was going to happen. I was going to be good at this, and I was going to make it a priority. And so that's what I did. And I took baby steps. It's not like it happened overnight, and moved in that direction to make it happen.
Yeah, I love that. It's so inspiring. So I'm curious, a couple questions before we close today. What do you wish someone had told you in the beginning?
Oh my God. Would have, I wish somebody when I was 16 would have sat down with me and explained this in a way that made sense. Because when you start when you're younger, it is mind blowing the difference that you can have in your wealth than when you start in your 30s or 40s. And if you're in your 30s or 40s, it does not mean don't start now. It means fucking start absolutely right now. But I wish that like when I was younger, that yeah, somebody would have been like, okay, this is why you invest. And that's why with my kids, my son's 4, I just rebalanced a few of our accounts and I like had him on my lap. I was like, okay, press the buy button. It's like they're gonna know how to um how to do this, because nothing will pay you like investing does. And so many, okay, I have one more too. Like it is so easy for us to get lost in the day to day of like, I'm so overwhelmed at work. And this was me. When I was like in fintech, I was working 60, 70 hours a week. I fucking like consumed by work. And it didn't feel like I had a free moment. But I was also consumed by, like, I was surrounded by some people that were also starting to invest. And so it was like a good community of like, okay, like one of the guys on my team, like we would talk all the time about like, oh, what are you investing in, crypto and this type of stuff. But it's easy to get lost in that. And I know people who are still so consumed by the everyday of work that they don't take a step back and realize that that job doesn't give a shit about you. Doesn't matter if you want accolades, you get bonuses, you get promotions. If AI can take your job, it absolutely will. You have to do things that create financial independence outside of the work that you're doing in your day-to-day job. And if you're not doing that, you are doing yourself more of a disservice than climbing the corporate ladder and continuing to work your way up. So I wish that somebody in, 2017, 2018, when I used to get really upset about work, would have sat down and be like, the job is not here for you to like get emotionally invested in. The job is here to produce income that you take and you put in assets that will generate income. Like just breaking it down as simple as that. And then it'd be like, oh, okay, yeah. So like it doesn't fucking matter. Don't waste energy on it. Just focus on get the paycheck, climb the corporate ladder, get the fuck out, and focus on building your own empire at your house.
Yeah,
Because
I
then you're
love that.
secure. So
Yeah.
yeah, that would have been dope. It would have
Yeah.
been 2017 or when I was 16, somebody came in and was like, listen.
Yeah, and it's cool too because I think there probably are some people that listen here that are in corporate, but I think a lot of people also are entrepreneurs, and so they're already kind of like they. I think the people here listening know that they're like, I know I
Yeah.
have to build my own thing,
Yes.
or I have a lot of people that come to me that have been in corporate and now they're like, no, I'm done. I'm done with being sort of under someone else's
Owned.
yeah, exactly. And so I think we're already a step, we're getting there, but it's like, I think
Yeah.
this is the next piece of like, hey, yes, build your own thing, build your own brand, build your own business.
Yes,
And also, that doesn't have to be everything. And that's the
exactly.
realization I've been coming to in the last year, where it's like, it's such a divine timing where one of my clients introduced us. And
Yeah,
it was like
Danielle.
literally I was calling out. I'm like, hey, I'm ready for someone financial to show up in my life so I can learn this, because I know that there's so much more that we can do and not just like always be working on our own business, and also take the money that we make in our business and have it be another branch of income.
Exactly, exactly. And like it just getting back to a passive state, which like we live in an abundant world. We're so conditioned to stay in fear and in the scarcity mindset. But like once you tap into that, and that's really what investing has done for me, is being able to tap into that abundance and like see it and then see it grow and be like, oh, okay, yeah, like I don't have to work harder to get paid more. I can just get paid. I can just receive. Um,
Yes. Yes, I love this so much. Thank you so much. And the last question I'll ask is,
yeah.
what could the person listening today, what would be one thing that they could do this week?
Oh my goodness. I would say know your numbers. That's a
Okay.
really good place to start. Follow me on Instagram, themillionairemom.com or the millionaire mom next door. But start, okay. Oh God, that's a hard one.
I love it though. Know your numbers, right? It's awareness. It's like where I start too. It's
Yes.
like, let's just be
Yeah.
aware of what's actually happening.
Yes, exactly. I would say look into, and I know this is scary for some people to open your bank account, but open your bank account and start looking through what your numbers look like, how much money is coming in, how much money is actually going out, and then see if there's excess. And then if there is excess and you have your emergency fund set up with an emergency fund, industry standard is 3 to 6 months. What I always tell my clients is um, if you are in a riskier role, so like if you work in tech, have 6 months. If you work in a role that you're like, I'm a doctor and my husband's a lawyer, then, maybe you just need 3 months because those roles are much more secure. It's like the doctor role. Most likely you're not going to like lose your job. Or if you do lose your job, you can get another one easily, like a nurse too. So, and once that's done, start to invest. And even like I coach some of my clients that like even if you're in debt or even if like you haven't gotten your emergency fund it's at 3 months and you want to get it to 6 months, start with $10. Start with a nominal amount that is not going to negatively impact you. Go in knowing you could lose it all, right? But start. Because if you don't start, you never will start. And then
Yeah.
you'll be looking at yourself like, fuck, it's been 10 years now because time moves fast. And the older we get, the faster it goes. And I haven't started. And then when you do start, you're going to be kicking yourself in the ass, being like, I cannot believe I didn't start. And like, I lost out on like, not just the gains in the market, but the fact that like I could have put in $200 a month and now I have to put in 400 to get to the same end goal.
Yeah. Okay, great. Okay. So, yeah, we got to know our numbers and we got to start. So thank you so much for coming on today. I definitely, yeah, I'm grateful for everything you shared, and really knowing too that we just have to start so that we grow that confidence and we can learn to, slowly let go of that control and that fear, and, just taking the time out of our day to invest in ourselves, just even by learning, a little bit here and there about investing. And so I just want to, where can everyone find you? What's going on? I know you have a new program coming up, and this could be a really cool place to start. So maybe just give people a place to find you.
Yes, I love it. So I'm primarily on Instagram. It's the only social media that I'm doing right now. I decided one year I'm just gonna like focus on learning this one as someone who's been off for so long. You can find me at the Millionaire Mom Next Door on Instagram, or my website is NicoleIngham.com. I do have a really exciting new program for any woman that's listening and you're like, okay, I do want to start, but I don't know where to start. Invested was born because in my one-on-one coaching program, I focus on three key pillars. One is money mindset, and that is the wealth energetics. And that's pretty much what we went into today. It's just like all about building those neural pathways, healing the relationship that you have with money, because we all have one with money, whether it's positive or negative. and it's actually developed by the time you're age 6. So right now you're carrying, whether you know it or not, that relationship most likely that your parents imparted on you. So how can we fix that so that it's the one that's serving the current chapter that you're in? The next is transparency, and that's all knowing your numbers. So knowing what's coming in, knowing what's going out. I love working with entrepreneurs because then we can actually dive into, you're charging a set hourly rate. What are you actually making per hour? After you take out all of your income, all of your expenses that are going out, taxes, all of that stuff, like what are you seeing? Is that the number that you want to see, or do we want to see more? Okay, let's get creative and let's make it more, or let's strategically look at what you're making so that your time is best spent. I did this with one of my clients last year. She's an esthetician, such a badass. And we were able to increase her income by over $20,000 for the year. No more effort, just working smarter. And that's what your numbers can tell you. The last is growth vehicles. So all that money that you now have, the abundance that you're living in, now let's take it and let's grow it. So that's where I coach women to empower them on understanding how to invest in the stock market. I'm not a financial advisor. It's not financial advice, but it is the breaking down something that is so male dominated and being the evidence that like, if I can do it, you can too. So what I wished when I started was that I had a community of women that were badasses and holding each other accountable and saying like, hey, this is cool. I'm going to invest in this asset. What do you guys think? And having that community. And that's why I built the Invested program to have that community. So it'll be a 9-week program. It's happening on Thursdays starting April 16th from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you're going to learn everything from what your goals are, how to align your goals to your finances so that your finances can work for you. So if like your end goal is buying a house, you're opening the right account to do that. Figure out what type of investor you are. So like we talked about the passive versus active investor, you're going to know that. I'm bringing in key speakers that are just like mind-blowing. One is an NPR and Forbes writer. She works in venture capital. She's going to help show you how to vet a stock. She's going to co-teach that lesson with me. Then I'm bringing in my attorney. She's an estate planning attorney. She has won best attorney in Florida year over year for the last 4 years. She's like one to watch. She's absolutely phenomenal. And she's going to show you how to keep your wealth generationally. And a lot of the time people, when you think about generational wealth, at least at our age, like you're thinking potentially about like how you can pass that money on to your kids. But a key miss in that is how can you make sure that your parents' wealth is also protected as they continue to get older and age. I've seen this. My parents took lead on this with my grandparents. Like I said earlier, my dad funded my grandparents. He paid for everything for them since he was 25. So the money in their accounts was his money. And then when my grandparents were getting sick and Medicaid was coming, it was like, oh, well, that money is now in their accounts and you can't get that money back. It's going to go to the government or to the states. So how you can prevent that from happening to your family. I also went through this with my mother-in-law who almost died, and we had to go through the process of like, wills and trusts and durable power of attorney, all of that stuff you do not want to do in that moment. You want to do it beforehand. So she's going to come in and talk about that and give an estate planning lesson, which is fucking gold. Like that's absolutely priceless. And then I'm bringing in a real estate expert who she went from a real estate agent, built her own portfolio and homes, duplexes, and now she does industrial real estate funding. So she allows regular people like you or me to invest in industrial projects. So all 3 of them are coming in. You're going to learn everything from what the assets are, like we talked about on today's call, like ETFs, index funds, mutual funds, stocks, through the accounts to invest in, create your portfolio, understand why to diversify, and have a group to do it in. So if you have questions about it, feel free to follow me on Instagram, DM me. I'm more than happy to answer questions. But we start on April 16th. So if you are ready to get started on this journey, the time is now.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for meeting with me today. And we'll be in touch and hopefully we'll have you back. And I still have so many questions, like what do you think about, what's happening in the world and all this stuff. So we'll have to have you back at some point. And until then, have a beautiful day and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for your time.
If this episode lit something up within you, come back and join me again soon. We'll unravel it here together, one episode at a time. And if someone came to mind while listening today, a friend, a colleague, a family member, someone you know who's sitting on something meaningful that's ready to be seen by the world, please send this to them. That one share could be the very thing that changes their whole world and has a ripple effect to change others' lives. Thank you for tuning in to Your Inner Landscape. Now go get outside, have some fun, and I'll see you for the next episode.